Hey everybody, I want to do a quick video on the patch notes of Overwatch 2 last night, where the dev team seek to address the festive woes, I suppose, as people complain about whether you despise Mauga or you hate Mauga. They really only fell into those two camps. Personally, I fell into category 3. I didn't mind Mauga, but I will say that the interaction with Mauga versus Mauga in the mirror led to some of the worst Overwatch ever conceived. And I did mention this at the very start of his release that Mauga versus Mauga didn't feel particularly good, but Mauga versus other tanks actually is somewhat more of an interesting battle. But anyway, what did they do to this guy? They kind of tried to butcher him. I don't honestly know if this is going to make a huge difference. I think if we saw actual competitive play and there were no major tournaments going on right now, I actually don't think Mauga would have saw any play. Or he would have only seen play in situations where teams were pretty certain they couldn't beat an opposition in a similar mirror matchup. And by the mirror matchup, I think it would have been some sort of Ram rush, Junk Queen rush. Therefore, they would just try the Mauga and just see if they could maybe unsettle the comp in some way. But anyway, for the changes, they've taken 50 armor off him and given him 50 health. Whatever, that's a fine change. I don't really care about it. It just makes him a little bit more killable by multiple pellet sources of damage. And just actually more killable in general, so that's fine. He's had an ammo reduction from 350 to 300. I'm actually not super fond of this change. I already felt like you burst through your ammo capacity pretty quickly, especially if you want to play the game, and really the only interesting part of the Mauga kit is the game where you left-click someone to burn them and then right-click them to critical damage. If you're doing that in the build-up, the poke phase, so to speak, then it doesn't leave you a lot of ammo to gun them down when people collide, right? So I think that's a little bit of a weird change. I want to come back to Cardiac Overdrive change and the Berserker one in a moment. Actually, you know what? We'll do both of those now. We'll do Cardiac Overdrive and Berserker now, and I'll go to Cage Fight later. I really don't like these changes. I think they're stupid, and they don't really address the problem with the hero, which is that Cardiac Overdrive and Berserker, they reward you for shooting the enemy tank and punish you for shooting anyone else. Why? Because Mauga's tankiness is basically gained from firstly pushing E and getting a huge amount of lifesteal. He does also get a damage reduction. They didn't change the damage reduction, so he still does get a bit of tankiness from it either way to other heroes. And also Berserker, whenever he crits someone, he gains overhealth. That's what the Berserker passive is. And to get crits, you can use your incendiary ammo, and then use the volatile one to get guaranteed crits. And this has gone from 60 to 50, and this has gone from 70 to 60. It hasn't done anything to change the fact, though, that both of them, the best way to efficiently use your resources here is to blast the enemy tank. And especially if you're ever going to get into a situation where it's Mauga versus Mauga, and Mauga is, this huge, massive hitbox on the screen, of course you're going to shoot the Mauga, and you're not going to shoot the little stick figure tracer over here, right? Because you're then in the tank v tank matchup, I don't know why that was so hard to say. You're forgoing 70% lifesteal, now 60% lifesteal. You're forgoing 50% overhealth, unless you have unbelievable tracking. And this hero's already got a giant spray anyway, so it doesn't matter if your tracking's good. If the Mauga on the enemy team is blasting you with both barrels of the gun and getting lifesteal, overhealth, and also shredding you, it doesn't matter because you can't both barrel the tracer and get the similar effect. It won't be the same. So these changes actually do absolutely nothing. Other than the fact that they'll probably push Mauga further into obscurity, which I think the general community will be happy with. So they'll be pretty happy with this change. This one I don't actually mind, though, on the cooldown increase from 10 to 12 seconds. That's fine. That can be changed. I think 12 seconds is still reasonable. But personally, I would have preferred this to be, a bit more thought-provoking with change rather than just a raw number change. Why not change it for, it's 70% on deeps. Okay, that's the worst color I could have ever picked. It's 30% on deeps and support. But 70%, sorry. But what if it was 35 on tanks? Then you're rewarded for not shooting the tank. You're rewarded for going for squishy heroes. You're rewarded for your skill expression and how you're going to use your charge to take angles, to shoot people that aren't a giant hitbox that you cannot miss. I don't know. I think the change is fine. but I think it's a little bit boring, and all it's going to do is, I don't want Mauga to be in this Roadhog category, right? Where he's either unplayable or unbelievably broken. And I think this hero is so one-dimensional, he risks falling into that category. I personally would have liked to see something a little bit more... I mean, just something with a bit more thought to it, I suppose. The final change is Cage Fight. He no longer gets infinite ammo, instead he gets a reload when he starts the ultimate. I think it's fine, I think Cage Fight is overtuned. Personally, I would have rather seen... I think it's fine for him to have infinite ammo in the Cage Fight, but at the cost of letting people use their goddamn movement abilities. If you're in an ability game, it's really fun to use your abilities, right? Now, I do appreciate there should be heroes in the game that can offer some sort of silence at a cost. Like maybe it's, a hard skill shot or something like that. This wasn't a hard skill shot, so I don't think it should take away your movement abilities. I would have preferred to have seen that first. The only reason I think they haven't done this, is my assumption, because a lot of people have mentioned this, is that there are some buggy interactions with the cage with movement abilities, and they just couldn't deal with it. So they were like, nope, you can't use movement abilities. A bit like when Echo, if you were copied by Echo, you couldn't change your hero in the spawn. That was because of a bug they couldn't fix. I believe the bug was if you changed your hero, then the Echo copy would also change to that hero because of the way it was coded or something. I don't even know. But that's why that's in the game. It's not because of any thought-provoking balance reasons, it was because of bugs, and I think that might be the same case here. I think it's going to be generally positive, though. Cage Fight won't just be a push Q, win the game type of thing. You can actually survive in the cage, maybe. But there are still some heroes that... this change doesn't really matter if you're Ball, let's say, Wrecking Ball. It doesn't really matter if you're Doomfist. You're still going to die in the Cage Fight without your movement abilities, so... yeah. A lot of changes. I think Mauga, obviously, big nerf. Won't see as much play, but it's still going to be obnoxious to play against, so not exactly a great patch notes, in my opinion. Then we get onto this crazy character, Orisa, the character that I don't think the Overwatch dev team know what to do with Orisa, because they've reworked her, and they still don't know exactly what she is. Her primary fire no longer has fall-off damage. Why? I don't know, I guess the Blizzard team thought it'd be fun. Also, Fortified now makes Orisa immune to critical damage. I believe the interaction of this was that Mauga's critical hits would go through Fortified, because the Fortified said you couldn't get headshot critical hits. Now it's just any critical, so it overrides everything. Fortify is the be-all and end-all of critical hits. If you try to crit Orisa, you can't. Fortify denies that. So they've increased her survivability, and she now has unbelievable range damage. So in the term of, if you have a scale on the tanks of range, Orisa, and assuming this is long, Orisa is now at this end. Very hard at this end. She was at this end before, but now extremely at this end. Even more so than heroes like, Sig that often see play on these long sight-ranged maps. And that's all well and good, That's going to be really toxic to play against, right? I did play a few games off camera and I sniped a Zen across the map with the augmented fusion driver. And they were like, what the fuck just happened to me? I melted. And I was like, yeah, sorry, I accidentally crit you 5 times in a row from across the map on Havana 3rd, so enjoy respawning. So yeah, they made the hero more toxic to play against. I don't think it's necessarily a huge buff to the hero either. The primary fire is pretty slow moving. It is something you can dodge. You're probably going to just get some lucky shots with it. Again, it is just going to increase your overall damage though, so ults will build faster, so on and so forth. You get the deal. Orisa, though, I think suffers from awful design. So I don't think there's any way to fix this character. She again falls in the Roadhog camp. I think Orisa is either going to be unplayable or a absolutely must play. You can't pick anything else other than Orisa. They will just giga buff her to a certain extent where you can't ignore her anymore. I really hate what they did with Orisa. They really, really butchered this hero on the rework. Half of the kit feels very brawl related, the spinning do, as I call it, like a javelin spin. She wants, to javelin throw and follow up on the javelin, so you kind of want to be mid-rangey for that. And then they give her just this huge long-range ability. The other downside to this, by the way, is if you're looking at heroes that, Orisa can't really interact with and, have fun against, it's typically people in the long range as well, so Orisa plays in a range that also sort of counters her, so that's really interesting game design. So, yeah, I think the change is awful. I think it's going to be really unfun to play against. I don't think it's going to make Orisa any more competitive to play at the highest levels. It's just, as I said, it's going to make it more unfun to play against. So, I don't fully understand why they've done this. Roadhog, okay, you know what, I've been harsh. I think this is both fine. Roadhog had a lot of survivability on the ladder. I don't think it's particularly good for, like, competitive play. You didn't see any play in the... Actually, he saw very, very, very little play in the Flash Ops tournaments on EU, at least. I do believe that mainly was yellow now I think about it, but... Yeah, on ladder, this guy is just an unkillable juggernaut. If you're not using team coordination, like, literally, some comps just can't kill him. So, I think making him a bit less survivable is fine. The problem with this is, and you've just reworked this character, how do you stop this character either being absolutely awful or absolutely broken? There's just like no in between on this character. They're just one or the other. And I don't know. The rework just hasn't done that for me. But we talked about that in the past, so let's not get into this again. Sojourn, also, did you spin a wheel when you made the patch notes? Sojourn was, I would argue, and, you know, others would disagree, I'd argue Sojourn is the best DPS right now in the game before the patch. Certainly, I think it'd be hard to argue she's not in the top 3 DPS. And they buffed her. Her rail no longer decays below 25%. Why? Why have we done this? Why? I just don't understand. Why are we buffing the really strong heroes? Now, the game's never going to be in a balanced state. If anyone ever says, like, oh, they're really bad at balancing the game, it's like, because the game can't be balanced, it's not possible. What you want, though, from the balance patches is to make heroes that weren't particularly viable before become more viable, especially if you get in the Sojourn category, where there are heroes that occupy a similar niche to her in terms of a damage range. Let's say a Cassidy or a Soldier, if you will. I know they don't quite have the same kits with the movement, for example, but they can operate at a similar range. Give them a little bit of love so they rise to the top. Let Sojourn fall down a little bit. And then after a few months, maybe, you know, you bring Sojourn back up again and drop one of these other guys, just to keep the game fresh. Sojourn has been seen play pretty much continuously, almost since release of the character. There have been a few times where she's, like, dipped off, but she's super, super strong. I don't understand why they've buffed her again. She's going to be really, really strong still. Yeah, I mean, it's just as simple as that. Also, I was thinking in the shower, why did they give this change to Sojourn? Like, you know who would love something like this? Or an equivalent, I know it can't be exactly the same. How about Zarya, who doesn't see any play either? Again, she did see very minor play in the Flash Ops as a counter to Junker Queen. But imagine if after a fight, Zarya didn't decay below 25%. And let's say, like, when she next uses a bubble, it refreshes back to 0 again. Just so that you can start the fight at the very least at 25 energy, just for a little bit of poke even. That would actually make a pretty big difference to Zarya. And nope, gave it to Sojourn, who was already super strong. I'm not saying this is like the change I would make for Zarya, but come on. Sombra. I mean, honestly, these changes I feel are really minor. I don't play a lot of Sombra, so you might tell me that I'm wrong. The grace period where stealth can be cancelled immediately after entering it increased from 0.5 to 0.75 seconds. I don't understand really what this is for. So you can't cancel stealth as quickly anymore, which I guess is a nerf, question mark? Like, I feel like it's a buff in the situation you might fat finger accidentally and cancel stealth too quickly, and they've given you a 0.25 extra reaction time for that. But the only situations I can see this being like, I don't know. I really don't know. The only situation I can see it being relevant is if you're trying to touch the cart and you just go into stealth at like the last second, get to the cart and you want to cancel and you can't cancel and you see down the cart. That's the only situation, and it's going to be so specific, that 0.25 seconds. I guess the other reasons are that you can't, like, flash stealth anymore to do more damage. Like, you go into stealth, move, immediately drop stealth and start shooting again. You now have 0.25 seconds. I mean, I just feel like this is such a nothing change. The cooldown pauses at 1 second when capturing or contesting objectives from 1.5 seconds. So I believe what this means is that you can't go into stealth while you're like, in battle, I suppose is the term for it, so like shooting and stuff like that. But if you're capturing the objective, it will now lock to 1 second instead of 1.5, so you could be on the objective trying to C9 your opponent. You can throw your translocator away and you'll go into stealth faster. So they've kind of buffed what I think is an annoying aspect of a kit, right? Am I reading this right? That's what they've done here. They're basically buffing annoying things about her. And then on respawning, it's also decreased from 1.5 to 1, and she gets a speed up in stealth so she can get back to fights faster. Sure, whatever. That's a fine change. She can get back to a fight 0.5 seconds. Well, maybe it's not 0.5 seconds faster. It's whatever the 0.5 seconds... How fast she could move in 0.5 seconds. You know what I mean. It's so minor that it seems irrelevant. But anyway, I think it's a net positive, but... Why? Anna has been nerfed for the 18th time in a row. Her duration of a biotic grenade is down from 3.5 to 3 seconds. There's going to become a critical point where the ability feels like it does nothing. I don't think 3 seconds is it. I don't think this makes the ability any less annoying to play against. Again, like I talked about with Mauga, how about this effect doing something different to the tank versus the rest of the hero pool? That would be interesting, right? Because then you could have this ability cranked up to like 5 seconds on DPS support to allow you to save yourself as Anna and kill any nasty flankers or something, but you don't ruin the tank's day by making him completely unable to heal when half the tanks now have health tanking resources. That would be an interesting idea, right? Ilari's also received some buffs, and again, I have to be completely honest with you, I don't play Ilari almost at all. In fact, she might be my least played hero now. I know she got released pretty recently. Her primary fire charge gain is no longer paused by secondary fire nor channeling Captive Sun. I'm not going to lie, I didn't know that happened. So this is going to make the hero more fluid, right? Because normally she plinks away, and her gun has like got this little bouncing resource meter that when she fires, it goes back down to 0, and then it slowly charges back up, and at a certain point, like she gets the maximum damage. I didn't realize that when you switch to healing, this thing just stopped where it was. Now it doesn't. It'll actually go all the way through. So you can actually weave in. I'm kind of thinking of like Kiri with weaving in your... I want to say... kunai and your Afuda, right? Afuda? I can't remember what it is, but the healing paper that Kiri uses, they can weave in like the healing and the damage. I think you're going to do that more efficient with Ilari. So I think that's actually a pretty... Again, I've been pretty, down on the notes. I think this is a good change. Ammo increase from 14 to 16, fine, also good change. Captive Sun now fully refills the secondary fire resource, which I believe is your healing, and resets the overheated status. So I believe that is, when you run out of healing juice, like it goes into this mode where you can't heal anymore, and it lasts for quite a long time. So it actually punishes you for using all your healing resources. You want to go down to like the last little drop of it, and then no more. Now you can actually fully expend it, ult, and you'll get it refreshed. I think it's a quality of life thing. I'm fine with it. And remove the damage fall-off penalty on the Sunstruck explosion. A little bit... I'm not sure about this one. So I assume this is like the Junkrat mine, right? Where the center of the... or the epicenter of the explosion does more damage. And it does less as you fall out. I don't exactly know what the range is on this. Actually, you know what? Let me just check the notes. I pulled up Ilari before this because I wasn't actually sure exactly of her numbers. 8 meters is... Oh, that's a splash. Never mind. Where is the explosion area, though? Explode? Does anyone know? Anyone? Does the wiki know? The wiki doesn't know. Oh, I've missed it. Anyway, I don't know what the area is of that explosion. If it's pretty tight, then the change is fine. If it's not, then... let's just say it could be a little bit obnoxious if you're trying to run some sort of deathball comp. Finally, we have Life Weaver. They keep slowly buffing this guy. Actually, now that I think about it, he did get a small nerf, didn't he, in the recent patch when he wasn't being played. Small buff for this guy. His projectiles move faster. Makes it easy to do damage. Doesn't get around the fact that it's really obnoxious to swap between damage and healing. But, hey, easier to output damage as his character now. Also, the petal platform is no longer pierced by piercing projectiles. Which I don't really know. What is the piercing projectile you're focusing on? The only thing I can think of is the ram punch, but that's not really a projectile, it's a melee attack. Right? Does anything else pierce shields? Because a lot of the shield piercing stuff got removed from the game because it was really toxic. Anyway, I think this is like a nothing change. There probably is an ability I'm just not thinking of where you can shoot it through the platform and kill the life weaver on top of the platform, so I guess it's, you know, it is a buff, but it's such a niche interaction, who cares, is at the end of the day. Anyway, that's my lowdown on the patch notes, and generally my general mood of this patch, which is like, a little bit boring, but, you know, you've at least addressed Mauga issue, you've addressed the hog issue on ladder, you've then inexplicably, like, buffed Orisa's fall off, inexplicably buffed Sojourn. You've made Sombra, I think, more annoying to play against. You just keep kicking Anna Mains in the nuts. Alari, I think, is actually a pretty positive one, and the Life Weave one is just like a nothing burger. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.